Hey, Rusty, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Hey, thanks, Brian. No, my name is Rusty Jensen. So I'm VP of Revenue Generation at NICE. So I've been at NICE the last 12 years, done a lot of different sales positions. So started as a sales developer, did prospecting, I carried a bag, I sold the products. I've run sales regions, sales divisions, mid-market and also our SMB teams, and also some pipeline generation. So I've got a lot of experience across the board over at NICE. And before that, I was an entrepreneur. So I got beat up enough as an entrepreneur, so I decided to join the corporate world and give up. So,
But why sales? What you like about it?
I love sales. I love sales. To me, it's a fantastic game. It's a fantastic set of skills that you can learn where you can control and influence things. Plus, you're part of really business discussions. You're involved in business. You're executing business skills. You're not just executing one component. You're helping to plan and strategize and help people solve problems. And I get excited. So
yeah. And was it a steep learning curve for you, or was it just a natural progression from the entrepreneurship? Or
that's actually a great point. The entrepreneurship was a steep learning curve. So and you've got to be a great salesperson. You start realizing but your sales, your service, your everything. And when you go from that kind of world into sales and actually just doing the sales component, it's actually a relief and it's fun. It's kind of the fun part of building a business.
Yeah.
And so, getting into sales on that side, that's just how it is. It's fantastic.
And what were some of the key epiphanies and steps in learning that kind of really changed or accelerated your career?
As you kind of progress from a sales perspective and you kind of earn your stripes, I call it, shoveling gravel. You do the tough sales jobs. You're getting rejected all the time. You have this level of stress that's a little bit unusual. You feel like you don't have control of what your ability to succeed. You learn about things like it's a numbers game, and I just have to be really good at just outputting volume and I'll be successful. And a lot of people feel like it feels like luck. And I can just tell you that what really transformed things for me in my career in sales is when I figured out how to move from this concept of trusting in luck to the ability to trust in actual skills that I can develop that can influence people and influence outcomes, and the science behind selling. And understand the art and the science and knowing how to plug that in and to generate predictable results versus just doing everything you can and luckily succeeding or not. That's what changed everything for me, is when I started to understand that art and science and creating predictable outcomes in selling.
Because I think too many people and even leaders focus on just the activity.
Oh yeah,
just the shoveling.
Right. Just the shoveling gravel, right?
Or other stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What were some of kind of the science and the art elements that you kind of identified and made your own?
So first, when it comes to, sales and sales leadership, some of the things in terms of the science. So everything can be backed out into math. You can look at things like, what are our activity rates and what do they convert into, right? So even from like a demand gen standpoint, how much activity applied to these types of leads and lead sources lead to these kinds of outcomes, and we can predictably build engines around it. So the science, you can mathematically calculate anything. What are our closing percentages? What are our average deal size? What are they? And you can calculate that math. But then at the same time, most organizations may build that, but they miss the other side, which is how do you create consistent art and skill? And the way that I've actually solved that is by breaking down what skills individual salespeople have and that I've had that actually lead to success. So looking at people who are really good salespeople, who are very successful, and carefully watching them and understanding why they do what they do. Why do you speak at that speed? Why do you say things in this way? Why do you summarize your conversations in this way? How do you organize your evaluation plan and project plan? How do you get customers to buy into certain things? You start realizing that there are skills that start to emerge that are common themes among top performers. by taking those skills and then creating a process either for yourself or for your teams to build that skill set, and actually measuring the level of that skill and then getting it up to a consistency level, then makes all your math work. So your math works then, but you have to focus on proper selection and enablement of people and yourself so that your math actually works. And then you can start improving your numbers in your math. And then you can scale it as long as your skills improve and your math can improve.
Still too many people focus on just the math without the skills and assume everyone has those skills.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, most sales leaders, I'll tell you what, Brian, they manage people based on quota. Did you hit quota or not? If you don't have a job. If you do, great, I'll leave you alone. And that is not a good way to build a sales organization for scale. You have to be able to look at, are you doing all the right things? Do you have the right skills? Do you have the right components? Both in your hiring and selection process, you're hiring capabilities to learn skills that you can train. And if they have those capabilities, and then you're able to effectively train and teach people how to do them and execute them and ensure that they do, that's what matters. You have to look at both. Are you hitting numbers and are you doing the right things? And sometimes people just don't have what it takes. Sometimes they don't have the innate attributes that can be successful. It's fine. And we part ways. And some people don't have the will to learn those skills, and they don't have the will to apply the right activity, and we can part ways. But when people are doing the right things and they've got the right skills and you can train them and you can work with them, I'll take those people 10 times out of 10 because I can make them good, and you can make them good.
Because I think a lot of people look at selling as a single skill instead of a aggregate of many skills.
Yes.
And how do you break it down?
So we break it into, a couple of things, right? Which is, there are some innate attributes that make salespeople successful. And when you go to hire people, or you go to kind of evaluate yourself to be a salesperson, you have to look at those kinds of skills. Do you have good communication skills? Do you have good social skills? You're not going to teach someone who's learned how to communicate for the last 35 years, right? And hire them and suddenly make them better at doing it. You're not going to undo that. So you want to hire for people that have good communication skills, good technical skills if you're doing software sales, good organization skills if it's a complex sales environment, right? Those are types of skills you need to hire for. So you have to look at do you have the right mix of criteria? There's different horses for different courses, they say, right? So you need to find people that have the skills that fit the role that you need to hire for. Then at that point, the way that you identify the skills you need to teach are, what are the things that your top performers are doing well that are actually leading to results? So you pick 6 or 7 skills that really lead to results in your scenario, and you focus on building training and enablement around those. So as long as you got the raw materials when you bring somebody in to be successful, then you can then take those 6 or 7 things that really matter and train and focus on them. And sometimes we train too much on just administration. Okay, that's all onboarding, it's fine. But ongoing, you got to focus on what skills, like project management skills, presentation skills, demoing products, things like that. Whatever it is that leads to great leverage in your business, you focus on constructing training around those and making people successful. And it works like a charm if you do it right.
And when you have those top performers, what are you seeing them do differently than like the B players, the kind of the solid performers, but they're not killing it?
It's interesting. I would say that what they're doing differently is they have passion for it and they go all in. So usually when you're developing as a salesperson, you're developing salespeople, they have a curve that kind of looks like this. You train them and they teach them and they go up and up and up, and all of a sudden they peak and then they actually decline. And what you want to look for in great top performers is, when you get to a peak, it's usually a combination of skills and passion and excitement and also focus, because they're new skills, they're fresh skills. And then they start to decline because they kind of get casual, So usually people will just kind of get on autopilot and they'll just get casual. I'm good at this. I know how to do it. I'm just going to keep doing it. And then they'll kind of just flatten out. Okay. And so the reason for that is really it's an emotional investment and also an attention to detail. Because people, when they get on autopilot, they also start getting a little lazy. They start not summarizing as much detail, not creating the same kind of experience. Think of it this way. When you're an actor, okay, and you're on Broadway and you're presenting every night, you might do it twice a day for 5 years. But every time it's new to that audience, brand new to them. They've never seen it. It needs to be exciting. It needs to be the same energy. It's like this new message. Salespeople need to think that way when you're selling someone. It's this new experience for them. So it's casual for you, but it's new for them. So you have to be excited and passionate about those things and execute you have to be real sharp to make sure that you stay there.
And where do you think that passion comes from? Is it innate? Is it developed? Is it, the reward of winning? Is it the solving the complexity of a sale? What's your viewpoint?
You know what it actually, in my view, comes from is personal goals and objectives, career, financial, where people are investing in something that they personally really care about, actually helps drive passion into the business. So a lot of times, sales leaders should do things like go buy a Porsche, because I want you to have a jet so you can make your payment. I don't love that myself, but what I do love to talk to people about is, hey, let's do something crazy. Let's pay off your house. Let's invest and build your retirement. Let's create some financial incentives or goals for you. Let's get you to a new financial level. Like, let's get you to making over, $200,000-$300,000 a year. Let's do it. Let's get you to new levels, new heights. And when they have a goal and a passion, they apply it. But also career development. You want to become a leader? Keep your skills sharp by teaching others those skills. Yeah. Let's build your career. Let's invest in you and help you get to where you need to go. So a lot of it is just helping employees know that they have a path and showing them a path to achieving things personally or from a career perspective. And that helps a ton.
And have you had much success, like when they hit that peak and then they kind of over the summit? And it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect in science.
Okay.
I used to call it the B player trap, but then I found out there was a name for it in science. Yeah. Have you found a way of getting them back?
Yes. Like get them from like a stable to a growing and increasing.
Yeah. Well, you clearly see they're downshifting, they're skating, they're not giving it their all. They're kind of blaming everybody but themselves.
Yeah. It's really interesting, like to get people back in those kind of scenarios, a lot of times it's just about resetting focus and then setting them on additional paths. That's why it's really important when somebody becomes a top performer, they get to that point and they have all the skills that are required. Like as a leader, you can't treat all your salespeople as like a set, unmoving team. My team is built, it's done, and they're not going anywhere. They're not getting promoted. They're not going, I just have my team. You can't think that way. You have to think about what matters to them and can I help them build their careers in the way that they want? Can I get them to where they want to be? And if you invest in doing that, they will become revitalized because they're like, oh, great. So I learned how to sell. It's now an autopilot. Well, let's take your extra time now. Let's teach you leadership skills. Let's teach you new, diverse types of skills. Let's also help develop new ways of innovating and selling better. Can you pilot some of these new concepts of the ways we defeat our competitors or ways that we diversify or the way we position and sell? You make it more interesting and dynamic. That's what gets people, that's what I've found has gotten people more engaged. Now, not everybody bites, yeah. but that's what I found actually gets people out of it.
And what motivates you as a leader? What drives you?
Definitely, I basically have two things, right? As a sales leader, I've got two things. I've got a scoreboard on my head, right? Which is results. Okay. So number one, results. But two is developing people. it's working with salespeople and seeing them grow and helping them develop, and then see that they're leading organizations at other companies, that they're top performers in other areas, that they're killing it here. They're getting promoted. They're becoming more, they're telling me personal stories of success and telling me about, how their life has changed because they've learned skills now that'll feed them for life. Like that's what drives me personally, between those two things.
And what's the hardest part of your job?
I'd say the hardest part is, I would say one of the hardest things to do is to get everybody operating at the level that you want them to operate at, and trying to help them to see where they need to be, So as a sales leader, a lot of people that are top performing salespeople don't make great sales leaders. And there's two reasons for it. One is they have a really hard time explaining and teaching how they became who they are and how they became top performers. They kind of just skip to the end. So they go to the end and say, just do it this way.
Do it
but
my
they
way.
skip the whole development path that got you to where you are. And then the second thing is that they assume that everybody's like you, right? So you assume, well, you should just be like me. You should just be as motivated as I am, but they're not. So the thing that becomes very tough is, how do you help people to catch the vision of who they can be and what they want to be, and catch fire and do it? Because I have so much passion and energy for them. Like, I want them to be what they say they want, right? And it's hard to get people to be motivated to do it. And then also when people can't progress, to basically be like, hey, you're hitting a limit, having to tell someone that they're at a limit, or that they have to develop a skill that they can't. Like, it's hard. Like, it's hard to do. And it's hard to keep people kind of energized inside of that. It's a tough thing to balance, is what I would say.
And what's your advice for like a first-time sales leader? Because that first year, certainly the first 6 months, because you don't want to relinquish control.
Yes.
You've never managed or led people before.
Right.
You're focused on the number, and you don't get there unless everything is working.
Yeah. There's like a honeymoon period for a new sales leader that is a really important time to take advantage of. And that is that when you're a new sales leader, you're not expected to kill it out of the gate. You have a little bit of time. So you need to take your own time to set yourself up and learn how to be a leader, and not necessarily try to tell everyone how to be like you were as a salesperson. Okay. So advice I would say as a new leader, you have to be able to set up your main structures. How am I going to do proper hiring and selection? How am I going to do proper training and enablement that incorporates the whole path, the whole development cycle that you went through? And how are you going to be an aid and a support for your team to develop personally and develop professionally, right? And how can you you need to set yourself up for all of those structures, and then not do what you will have the natural tendency to do, which is to take what you're good at already and then just take over and try to sell, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn how to become skilled and how to make people like you are, not the other way around, which is do everything for them. It's very hard to do, but during that initial period, slow down and learn how to lead, learn how to hire, learn how to enable, learn how to balance and develop skills, and make sure you also learn that not everybody's like you, which is why you're unique here. You're the one who's being leading. They're not like you. Accept them where they are and help them to be the best they can be. That's really what you need to focus on.
And how did you learn how to hire? Because I always look at, if you hire well, everything else is a lot easier. You hire poorly, and everything else, you just keep paying for that mistake.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the way that I learned how to hire is, I've had some great mentors, which is very positive, but actually I went to different people, some CEOs, leaders, a lot of people outside of my company, as well as experienced people inside. and including people who do hiring for a living. So some professional recruiters and people who hire and do that are high level. I just sat down with them and said, what is important? What do we need to understand? What's going on? I met with my HR team. See, some people think also that HR is like the group that's just designed to fire people, right? Or get you in trouble, you know, in things you say. But no, they're actually there to help model and build the right kinds of hiring. So by interviewing all these people, I started collecting the best practices and started to realize that I'm not necessarily hiring, you know, just add water salespeople. I'm hiring people with the raw materials that can learn the skills. I can't just assume that they have the skills. What you'll find as a leader is most salespeople don't have the skills to execute at the highest levels. Most don't. But your job as a leader is to help make sure that they have the raw materials to acquire those skills and to help give them those skills. So the way I learned to do it was working with HR, working with other professionals, and building an actual model and a playbook that I follow to a T, right? That helps a lot. So
Well, what I found is that's critical because when you're interviewing, you're almost hijacked by your emotions, how you feel about the person. Do you like them?
mm-hmm. Totally.
And
You totally do.
Right. And, you know, and then all of a sudden you're making a decision that's based emotionally instead of logically. And then 2 or 3 months later, you're like, well, what happened?
Yeah.
Well, they don't have that grit. They don't have that learning capability. They don't have that motivation that I thought they did in that hour I met them.
Right. Well, and that's why when you hire, it's more than one attribute. Whether you get along with them and they get along with the culture is only one part. But what are their communication skills like? How do they manage project management? How do they handle difficult situations? And so whenever we do hiring, and when I do hiring, what I'll do is I'll look at 2 different things. So first of all, I will interview them. Okay. And when I interview them, I'm asking what we call behavioral-based interview questions. I'm going to ask them, tell me about when this happens, what do you do? If this occurs, what will you do? I ask them to think through this, a buying process. What does a customer have to do end to end? You know, things like that. So you build these questions that are carefully constructed based on the attribute you're trying to look for. Project management skills, communication skills, interpersonal skills, things. You're looking for them specifically and you're asking specific questions with scenarios. And they're hard questions, right? But then after the interview, you also give them assignments. Because Brian, if I say, are you a good writer, Brian? Well, yeah.
Sure, love to write.
Love to write. I want to see your writing. So I'm going to ask to see it. You know, I'm going to, you know, if I want to hear a pitch from you, I want to show you, you're good at presenting, show it to me. So the other thing is assignments. And the third is observations. I love putting people in environments they're just not used to, right? Because what happens when you walk into a boardroom as a salesperson? Right. You're uncomfortable. So give them observations, you know, which is hey, I want to talk to you about this job. Come meet me at Starbucks. I'm gonna get some coffee. Let's wait in line and talk. Come to lunch. Come meet the team. You know, put them in environments where you can see them operating. So interview, assign, and observe. And every interview, every assignment, and every observation is based on a specific set of things you're hiring for. And you're looking for all of them. One of them is, do I like them? Can I get along with them? But it's a small piece.
Not the only thing.
No. And the trick is you got to do it all fast and smooth so that people don't feel like they're getting, you know, run through a gauntlet.
Right. Because there is a window of opportunity. It's not the only job that's out there. They may read it wrong. They may read it as you don't like them.
Sure.
You have to prove, they have to go through a gauntlet.
Yeah.
How many actual meetings would that be or interactions?
So in a hiring cycle, it'd be better. Usually try to get through them in a week and a half. Yeah. So a whole cycle, even with leaders. And interactions, you're talking about 3 interviews. So it'd be yourself, a committee, including team members, and then also like another senior leader. So I'll have my managers bring candidates to me and I ask them, do you want me to sell them or do you want me to interview them? Right? Sell or evaluate, right? And then, you know, we determine that. But usually it's a singular interview, it's a group interview, It's a presentation to meet the team. It is then a final interview, which is either selling or interviewing. But you want to try to get through it in about a week and a half. And so depending on the role, depending how serious it is, you're going to ask more. If it's a simpler role, you're going to ask a little less. The assignments are a little less onerous. But if it's a big role, if I'm hiring a VP of sales, if I'm hiring something like that, we're going to do some serious stuff. You're going to show me your skills.
Well, let's say it's just a rep. Now, when you have the feedback, how is the decision made?
Good question. So by ranking the skills. So you have different attributes you're trying to hire for. And again, we're not talking about other things. This is what I need to hire for. Okay. I'm going to rank them 1 to 10. So out of all the skills, 1 through 10, how do they score on each one? Then I'm going to get individual feedback from each person who's interviewed, not as a group. So you don't want the group to influence
a committee.
One at a time. What do you think? What's going on? What are your perspectives? Are they going to give you anything you didn't think about, in terms of some of the attributes? And once you get perspective from each person, and then you have like a ranking, you can kind of score them. Try to take the emotions out of it and try to focus on the score, because you will like other people more than others, So focus on the score and then make that decision.
And how well has that served you? What lessons have you learned from that, and what have you modified? Because I'm sure one thing was too important at one time and now it's more important, or was less important, now it's more important.
That's the thing that's interesting, is you always want to iterate on because you always, whenever you hire someone, you want to find out, okay, did that work? So did they actually have the skills needed to succeed, or did we get blocked on some kind of skill that you need to add to your hiring profile? Or was something that we just keep interviewing for, does it even really matter? You want to try to remove it. But no, over time, I mean, my whole list has changed in terms of what I hire for and what the skills are that we develop. The whole list has changed. But you've really learned how to do it right. And we've also learned things like, you put in too much of an onerous interview process, you lose candidates. So you have to kind of back that up and speed it up, right? So what I've learned is, I've learned through that process an adjustment to what the attributes are, focusing on the best kinds of questions, the best kinds of assignments, focusing on, all the right frameworks and selection, and then making sure that selection attributes tied to their learning ability to learn the skills that really matter, right? So it's always this cycle. But I can just tell you, from an impact standpoint, oh my goodness, you're talking 4 times the success rate. Now, do you still fail? Yeah. But so does the NFL. And they recruit people from the time that they're in 8th grade. You know what I mean? But they sometimes make bad hires too. But your success rate is so much higher when you're specific. Interview, assign, observe. You're focusing on the right attributes. You're scoring it right. You're taking emotions out. You're making good decisions. And then you've got the raw materials to be successful. Your hit rate is way higher.
And is this something that's continuous, even if there aren't recs, or is it cyclical, where only when there are openings?
No, I mean, you're always recruiting and hiring and looking for talent. I regularly go to lunch with people that that I want to potentially bring on and hire and work with, and regularly, just get to know people that are good and just spend time with them and talk to them, because you're going to need them, especially as your orgs get bigger. You need people. If you've got 10, 12 reps, you better have somebody in the hole all the time, because one way or the other, you might lose them because you can't, with them together, help them develop the skills they need. Okay. They might need to let them go. Or they may just leave. There's 40% of people looking for jobs right now, Brian. So you got to have a good candidate pool.
Cool. Hey, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. So you can look for me on Rusty Jensen LinkedIn. I've got different YouTube videos, different things going, and you can find me there, and Twitter as well at rusty.jensen. And of course, if you're a really good sales rep, you can always come to NICE and apply, and you can meet me in person. So,
and now you know how.
you know how. And I'll give you I'll run you through the ringer too. So but it's good.